Real quick, something that I like to bring up in these hearings, whether it's DOD or Homeland Security, is a conversation about the Jones Act. Are you familiar with the Jones Act?
I am.
Okay.
I am familiar with it.
I think I've been one of the most outspoken advocates in my 10 years of serving in Congress because I believe it to be truly important to our national security. But I'd like to briefly hear in your own words why you think the Jones Act is important.
Well,
and
certainly.
To protect the Jones Act and not to weaken it with waivers.
Right. So obviously the Jones Act there is to make sure that we protect U.S. businesses, U.S. interests there that provide those capabilities along the coast to offshore facilities. And so we have Jones Act there to protect that. I'm a supporter of that, strong supporter of that. Obviously CBP has a role when we talk about waivers to that. I think historically CBP has offered very, very few waivers, if at all. And a couple of those are in extraordinary circumstances. I know it was during some hurricanes back in 17. I believe it was Harvey that we issued one regarding when a pipeline went down to make sure that we can continue to move refined fuel and elsewhere. So what you will find as far as my approach is a believer in the Jones Act. CBP has to adjudicate each request for a potential waiver coming in. I know CBP did make some definitional changes back in October of 19, I believe, working with industry, and I think that was a 2-year process. So happy to continue to have those discussions to see if there's other tweaks that need to be made. And I know they engaged a number of constituents before they rolled that out.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and I appreciate your comments. I know your predecessors were pretty much on the same note that the Jones Act is vitally important to protect America's maritime industry, and it's extremely important to our national security. Commandants, admirals, generals have all agreed with your assessment as well. Real quick, we hear border security is national security. That is so true. I've had the pleasure of serving under 5 different presidents in uniform as a member of the Reserve or the National Guard. And I have to tell you that this president, his 3 short years, he made a commitment to rebuild our military, strengthen our nation, and put America first. And he has fulfilled, and he's fulfilling those commitments. And I think the majority of the American people see that. And I think it's kind of a shame that, if some of the people on the other side of the aisle would put national security and the American people ahead of partisan politics, then he wouldn't have to be, in the terms of my colleague from Florida, using terms like stealing or robbing from DOD. He's putting the American people first. He's choosing our national security, and he's doing what he thinks is right. And I agree with him, but I do believe if the others would fund the border security, the barriers, the technology, the boots on the ground, as well as our needs for our Department of Defense, then we really wouldn't be having this conversation. But I do know you were somewhat rudely cut off, and if you would like to make any comments to my colleagues, her remarks, or to mine.
I would say, as you indicated, President Trump, you will find no bigger supporter of both the military and the men and women at the Department of Homeland Security. So that's first and foremost. And we certainly thank the president for everything that he does for the department. I will say, again, border security is national security. And whether it's building a border wall system, understanding and knowing and vetting who's coming into this country, the goods that are coming into this country is job number 1 for the department. And so whether, again, we're talking about a border wall system or we're talking about potential travel restrictions that have to reduce the threat or the vulnerability of not understanding who's coming in. We talked about the refugee program, making sure that we have the right security protocols in place. That is job number 1 for the department and for the administration. So again, the department's doing all that it can to increase the security, understanding who's coming into this country. There are vulnerabilities out there that we are addressing through a variety of programs. But as I said earlier, and it's not a tagline, border security is national security, and I'm not sure that before this administration that was made abundantly clear. But again, I think under President Trump, he has made that abundantly clear time and again.
I agree. Border security is national security. It's a no-brainer. And I'd like to also say that the morale in our nation's military is the highest that I've ever seen it under this president, because he is focusing on the men and women in uniform, their families, as well as fulfilling the commitments to our veterans and making sure that they have the health care that they deserve and that they've earned. And so I'd like to also just say, you have a huge mission, securing and protecting our homeland. So thank you for your work, and thank you to the tens of thousands of dedicated employees under your watch. Thank you.
Thank you.